don't have to do the reference.
Yes.
All right, Diane, do your thing.
Thank you. So before we begin, we want to share that we will be recording tonight's meeting. We do plan to share this recording publicly in the event that a parent, staff, or community member would like to know what was discussed. If you do not wish to be recorded, please let us know at this time. Thank you.
Okay. All right, the next item on the agenda is the pledge of allegiance. You can all stand. Okay, back to the chair. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, guys. Next, we will open a public hearing on the budget. Any questions?
It's the time where public can speak?
No,
Oh,
it's a public hearing on the budget.
Oh.
Let's talk about the budget.
Yes, another year with no comments on our budget. I had no emails, I had no phone calls, I had no public input from the budget. We did post it in the newspaper, letting them know, it's been on our website, and yes, another year. Nothing has changed since I presented to you in July.
All right, no questions on the budget? Okay. All right, we're gonna run more. Okay, we're gonna come out of that, out of the public hearing and go into the meeting now. The community have any comments? That's you now. Remember, we have 2 minutes.
so this is recorded, right?
Yep.
There's a bunch of sweat on my back?
It's great, yeah.
Before you start, it's 2 minutes. You get that back on there.
It's actually 3 minutes.
3 minutes, I'm sorry.
Well, you guys can bring it up.
Yes.
So my name is Rick Slaughter, and I live here in town, and I didn't want to come in, you know, when you see the meeting about cross country, parents are upset, you know, about masks and all that stuff. That's not my way of handling things. I think there's a much more civil way to just convey to you guys. There's a lot of concerned parents, I'm sure, as you know, about the mask mandates. And I know that you guys are under the guidance of Governor Inslee and the Coast Guard Health Department. I'm just urging you guys to try to find a way, because there's a lot of parents that want that medical choice. So the folks that I chat with have said, you know, if the parents want their kids to have a mask, let them. But for the ones that want their kids to not have them, whether they have asthma, glasses, religious reasons, whatever that may be, maybe the children have had COVID or the parents are against it for one reason or another, I feel like it's the parents, their right to have a voice. And so we're looking, I've got folks looking here and others that we're looking for the school district that gets this overturned, or at least a policy in place where the parents can have a choice. If you guys talk with families and parents around this town, more often than not, they're going to tell you that that's the side that they agree on. So I'm hoping that that's where we can go. So I'm going to be looking for that in other counties to see. And then next Wednesday, we're going to have a rally for Unmask the Kids. It's happening. I thought there was 11 or 12. The gal corrected me last night and said there's now over 100 districts in Washington State alone. Or I don't know if it's districts or actual schools, but there's 100 other rallies all happening on the 18th next Wednesday. They're all doing them mostly right in front of the the building where the school district is. This isn't really set up for that. The street and block. I'd rather do it, you know, down at the fountain at the corner of Calistoga and Highway 162, right across from Key Bank, that fountain. So that's what we're going to be gathering, but not as an angry mob, but just like concerned parents. You know, we follow the science, and that's what I sent. If you guys got that notice, there's 47 independent studies that prove ineffectiveness of the masks in a variety of different ways. So the links are in there. I urge you guys to read those reports, look at them, so you can understand where the parents are coming from. Because the children, as most of us know, are the least at risk, and we're just hoping that you guys can take note of that. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll add.
Want to state your name for the record?
Caroline Griffith. In regards to the masking, there are other districts, I'm not sure if you're aware, that are also fighting the mandate. Sultan is one of the schools, and also Othello. I don't know if you've seen their YouTube video with the president, their board recently asking all the board members to reach out to the different districts and find out other districts that are in support of an option for masking and not masking. There's an RCW out there that states, and I don't have it exactly in front of me, that the board has the right to make the choice whether or not to mask the children and create their own policies. So I think if you can take the time to just kind of look around and see what's happening, it'd be great if Orting was one of those districts that wanted to jump on board and help support the community. It'd be fantastic if our signs we were holding up said, please help support Orting School District in the fight to have masks as optional, instead of saying something opposite, and we wish our board was fighting for us. So, I just hope we can go with that, and hopefully, we can get turned over, and our kids can go to school without masks on their face and get their tested. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other speakers today? No. Okay. Okay, we'll move back on to the next one, item of board recognition.
Okay, I wanted to thank the employees of the district, the parents that attended, and the community members that attended our CFAC meeting on Tuesday night. We had a tour of this older building and the maintenance department and OPS, my old stomping ground. And it was very informative for people to actually see the way the district is built, which is pretty piecemeal here in this area, and that people were really involved, and people did a great job organizing and sharing information, and it did a lot to help me to see new issues, even though I knew there were a lot of issues. And so I really wanted to thank Ed and all the staff that helped us with that, and all the parents and the community that are involved. Thank you very much, because long-term planning has been close to my heart for a long time. I was on a committee with Aaron a long time ago and then. And so I really was very pleased as a board member, and really grateful as a community member that there's so many people involved in this. So thank you.
Thank you, Heather. And then we'll move on to the,
Oh, you're good.
okay, Melissa. Your equity? Oh, you have
Did
time?
you have another comment?
Well, there was,
Recognition comment?
yeah, that, there's so much that has been happening around the district. I'm so proud each morning when I head out to work and I see all the students coming to class for summer school. I've just been really proud. I know there was a lot of heavy lifting to support that volume of kids that we would normally serve throughout the summer, whether it was for credit retrieval or just catching up on their own skill sets. So giving kudos to staff, and the district as a whole to serve those students. It's been a rough couple of years. And we've got learning to make up it. I'm just so proud to see the kids every morning. They're hanging out on the picnic tables, waiting for class to start, and I've seen our teachers out there supporting them. So I just want to recognize the district's effort to take care of those kids. So thank you. Thank you, staff.
And I'll just take on to the final kind of recognition for our staff is the community involvement that we've seen recently with the Catch a Truck event that was kind of out there, and then the National Night Out, just having representation from our school district at some of those events where we haven't been able to be in more than a year. And so it's just really nice to get back out there, get the district faces out there with the communities and be involved in them.
I think it's important for our community to be in our district and our district to be in our community, that we
got one recognition, I want a recognition for Marcy doing an excellent job. We just had an audit, and, I mean, it came out amazing. So you know where the money's spent, where everything is at, everything was in line. The auditor gave her and Chris a compliment. Auditors don't usually give compliments. So I was very impressed about that, so that's something they should, they've done a very good job. I want to thank you. Really, Chris, thank you for all the hard work you put into that. No other one, here we go, Melissa. This is the equity conference it was in.
Yes, so the National School Boards Association had an equity symposium this past July, and I thought that the topic was really important, and so I elected to go to the symposium, which was online. I kind of did for my own just to make sure that I understood equity, I kind of went to the dictionary. And in the dictionary, equity is a noun. It's the quality of being fair and impartial. In school districts, it goes just a little bit beyond being fair and impartial while having equal things available to all students. In school districts and in educating students, as Kathy has frequently said, it's really digging in now. You have to meet the kids where they're at. And so equity in schools means providing avenues and resources for the kids who might not get that at home, for instance, to be able to get those things at school and to be able to be at the same level as the kids who have all of the traditional supports. So in doing that and in thinking about that and providing inclusive opportunities, inclusive for all of our kids. Inclusive, if you take a vacation, you know, you think all inclusive, everything's covered. And that's what we kind of want in our school. We want kids to have an inclusive experience here. Includes everyone. So the first day was really spent on talking about healing. After the past year and a half with COVID, kids not being here, teachers not being here, that healing is really important. A lot of time was spent on discussing why school districts tend to ignore the mental health piece, and I know that we talked about that last year. As we all worry about the students all the time anyway, that when they're isolated, that became more prevalent. There was a lot of discussions around, you know, some real ways to get kids engaged in school. That would be more at the classroom level, teacher to student level, a lot of discussion on relationships and how important relationship building is. And most of us, I think, we know that, and we have great staff here at the school district who really strive to make those connections with the kids and make sure that they know some of the ins and outs of their lives and what's going to trigger them to be really excited about math or history or what have you. So, and then, of course, there was discussion about the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021, which is our ESSER funds that we get, and about what the purpose of that plan was and how we, as a board, can really make sure that getting equity and inclusive programs into our school is going to kind of fall to us as a board to make sure that we're supporting our district leaders, our superintendent, our teachers, the ones that are coming to us with these plans, that we have funds that we can dedicate to supporting those ideas and those plans that are going to make kids successful. There was a great big talk about changing, tweaking a little bit of learning. Learning for this past year and a half, learning is incomplete. We know that the kids didn't get the very best of what education can offer them in the past year, so how do we take that up now? And kind of changing that thought versus taking it to accelerate versus remediate was something that they used a lot, and I actually really found that to be refreshing. It doesn't have the negative connotation when you talk about accelerating learning instead of remediating learning. And that some of the ways to do that are with intensive tutoring programs, expanded learning times, and then over and over again, just the importance of building relationships and making those connections. It doesn't matter if it's the secretary behind the desk at the school or their teacher or the nurse or, you know, whoever that might be, but the connections and really getting those communications is important, so. It was a good conference. I'm glad I had the opportunity to learn about what was provided, and if any of you are interested, I have a bunch of information. If anybody wants copies, I'll be happy to send them to you by email. They didn't say whether or not it would be done next year, but I did just see on our login email that there is kind of an equity,
track.
I don't know, but there is in here, I got it in my email today, so there may be something in there to take a look at through Wanda.
Yes.
I'm glad to talk about mental health because that's something we definitely need to look into. Being closed for a year, you know, let's get the mind right, because if the mind's not right, the student won't be right. So we need to get it to learn, let's get down to the ground floor, let's make sure all of them, right, the mind is right. So I'm glad you helped.
There's a lot of things, I mean, that was just a very high overview, that even just looking at some of the links that they had provided after the fact, and trauma in kids, and who went to Kathy because she brings this up all the time, because they were traumatized. They were traumatized for COVID, but some kids come to us traumatized without, you know, having ever stepped foot, you know, so, anyway, yeah.
Thank you for watching that, and also for spending the time.
Any other questions on this? No? So we'll move right on to the superintendent's report.
Well, I couldn't have asked for a better frame or setup, because what you just discussed is exactly what our leadership team has been focused on for the last 2 days. And it's really that idea around developing agency in the system, that collective and individual ownership of how we recognize the needs for each child in the system and do everything we can to provide the supports, whether it's social, emotional, academic, behavioral. Yeah, we just wrapped up an amazing 2 days, and we're leaning into that conversation through the lens of innovation, and that's just one of the graphics we came up with to get that idea moving forward about the collective we, so it's each school in the district, and all of us focus on the systems, routines, the pieces that we can control that will actually make a difference in the life of each of our children. So it was an amazing 2 days. This is the word that we'll launch to start the year. And we're inviting a guest speaker to help us think through that lens. We have provided you tonight with a copy of his book, The Innovator's Mindset. And it's really all about that idea of empowering learners in our system and creating agency and ownership of the learning process. And that gets us thinking through the lens of creativity, having voice, being empowered, and actually doing something with the learning to create, invent, and model new ideas. So our kickoff will be focused thinking about the lens of equity through the idea of innovation. What can we control as a system, and how do we move forward to personalized learning, build those relationships, and ensure every student, every day, feels like they're heard, valued, and that learning is producing a different outcome. Moving forward, looking through that lens, we unpack that through a lot of different systemic lenses. And we asked ourselves, are those things that are actually advancing our work around equity, ensuring every child has opportunities and the ability to achieve, or are they hindering our ability? And so we look through grading practices through the lens of bias. We look through intervention systems and wrestle with what do we have today and what do we need to ensure that every student gets what they need on a timely basis in terms of what you were talking about whether it's tutoring or expanded learning or even deeper touch bases. So we're looking through the lens of intervention and support. Discipline, attendance, we know that was a challenge during remote learning, and we don't want to have that same disengagement. We want to recapture and re-engage. Professional learning communities, what is the role of adult learning through the lens of that commitment to each child? We look through the lens of our T-prep process, which, if you boil it all down, really was never created around evaluation. It was created around how do we ensure equitable learning. That was the whole foundation of the cell learning. So we looked and unpacked through that lens, as well as through that lens of guaranteed viable curriculum. What is it that we want students to walk away from knowing, believing? How will that produce that life readiness, that career readiness that we're after? So it's an amazing 2 days, and really the main focus is around that equity lens as it pertains to learning. We know that's one of your major focuses as a board of directors, is how we advance learning, and really we believe it's through that each child lens. What does each of those kiddos need to be successful, and how do we know that and provide it in a timely way? That comes down to the commitment around every student, every day. We've just kind of been saying that. That is our biggest celebration, returning to the school year. After 17 months of not having all of those kids, we know what that does to hindering our ability to ensure success, and we are super excited to get them all back. So that'll be September 1st, first day of school, and I'll share some key dates for you. So we are opening our offices. One of the things we know is we lost a couple hundred families from where we started the year to where we ended. We don't know where they're at, or are they coming back, and we want to be ready to meet their needs. So we're getting our offices open early. We send communication to all the families enrolled and that have unenrolled or disappeared last year, trying to get that communication to get them back in. We're going to start our training next week to ensure our new teachers have that proper orientation, they're welcome, they're onboarded, and the very next week, we're right back with all of our staff focusing on our building days on the 24th, 25th, 26th. We would love to invite any of you board that would like to join us on our kickoff celebration. We'll have George here the morning of the 26th, that Thursday, and he'll have an hour keynote just to help us think about that idea of innovation through the lens of personalizing learning, building relationships, taking risks, and then he'll be in our schools for the whole rest of the day, helping us and our staff to deeper unpack what does that look like and sound like, and how do we really launch with that lens of what you're discussing of personalizing learning for each child. Our first day of school will be coming online. We do have an orientation to help our students because, as you know, some of them haven't been a full day for a while, and so we'll have 6th and 9th grade orientation at those key transition points, followed by the first day of school on the 1st, and then kindergarten starting on the 7th. We had, and you mentioned this, and I won't really touch on it for a very long period of time, but our CFAC committee opened eyes to what our present reality, and it was both a success and a challenge. The success is they saw through the lens of our staff what our challenges and our needs are, and I think the other piece of the success is they saw a newfound appreciation for how our staff are wrestling with what we have today, with where our needs are. But they saw challenges as well in terms of our elementaries today are overcrowded. And at our next meeting, which will be coming up here in a couple weeks on the 24th at Ptarmigan Ridge, we'll still do the tour aspect, but we'll take a little bit deeper look at our enrollment projections. We have accurate numbers now from our developers, so we can really forecast on a conservative and aggressive estimate where are we going to be in 5 to 10 years, and that will help our committee inform a recommendation to you as a board of where do we go from here. So we received positive comments, and they're still coming in. Safety and health is definitely a challenge. I want to remind you of a piece of communication that I know you saw via email, but we haven't read publicly about our ability to control mask mandates and things of that nature. As a reminder, we do get our guidance from a few different sources: the Washington State Department of Health, OSPI, and for the labor side or the employee side, Washington State Department of Labor and Industries. So those are the 3 pieces of guidance and agencies that direct us and inform where we need to go. And some of that guidance sometimes is recommendations, and sometimes the recommendations are requirements and mandates. And so our job is to help our community, you all know where those sit, and make sure we get that out. So I do have a packet which will go out Monday, included for you, just what that current revised status looks like. And as you know, from the last 17 months, a revision may not stay a revision very long because all things change, and they change sometimes frequently. Right now, the indoor masking is a mandate, and I'll explain a little bit more about that. And the mandate is for adults that are vaccinated in the presence of students and non-students to have a face covering on. When the adult that's vaccinated is not in the presence of students, they are allowed to take a face covering off. That's why we're presumed that we're all vaccinated, so we don't have face coverings today. Unvaccinated staff are, through that guidance, expected to wear face coverings in the presence of others, including other staff. So that's where the guidance sits today. The guidance is probably likely to shift. You've seen Snohomish and other counties move to mandatory indoor mask orders. Pierce County in the Zoom meeting today, I believe, is heading in that direction. So that might change whether students are present or not. If that comes online, that we would be expected to all wear face coverings, which could change our next meeting, and certainly our working environment. Vaccinations have moved forward from to the mandatory stage for state employees under penalty of losing your job. Our school employees were not part of that directive that the governor provided, except we received guidance today that those employees involved in healthcare, which would include our health room professionals, speech-language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists. What we learned today is if you are licensed from the Department of Health, you must have a vaccination as part of that governor's order. So we're beginning that communication with staff about that this is a compelled reality. We don't see, based on OSPI's guidance and from the governor, that extending to students or school staff yet, but other states have done that for school employees as well. So that's an unknown at this point in time. We do have all the mitigation strategies, but the number one priority this year that we see in the guidance is schools staying in person full-time as a mandatory expectation. And that was backed both by the governor, OSPI, and the Department of Health. So there's nothing in the forecast that would tell us we might lead to a closure or even a part-time. Everything in the guidance says that the mitigation strategies are in service and support of returning to full-time, but not at the expense of it. So in other words, social distancing, do the best you can, but our number one priority is keeping kids in school all day, every day, which is also our biggest, of course, celebration. And then looking at athletic activity guidance, that just came out yesterday. Chris worked very hard to get that included, and so that will come out on Monday. But we do receive questions, as you know, and some of those came tonight, about what is the board's authority to not follow a mandate and what might happen if we chose to do that. So I'll read, and I know you've seen this in your email, but I'll read it directly just for your reminder and the information. So this came out from Superintendent Rakedahl at the end of July after our last meeting. And just some of the bullets are read as such. The ongoing mask order continues to apply to public schools, charter schools, private schools, and tribal compact schools. Under the authority of RCW 43.06.20, the governor has broad emergency powers and they have the power of law. As state superintendent, I have the responsibility to carry out the law, and I intend to do so regardless of how I might personally feel about masks or any other requirement placed upon the system at this time. By constitutional authority and RCW 28A 300.040, one of the state's superintendent's clear powers is, quote, supervision over all matters pertaining to the public schools of the state, end quote. Apportionment amounts and timing are shaped by additional law, but let me be clear. Boards or districts that intentionally disobey, dismiss, or shun an explicit law, including a governor's executive order, which has the power of law, will see an immediate halt to their basic education apportionment and their federal funds that come through OSPI. It goes on to state, any district that does not offer full-time in-person learning experience for each and every family and student that seeks it will be considered in violation of basic education rights of families and will also have their apportionment and federal funds immediately halted. These critical public health actions, including masking for now, are not at the discretion of local boards and local superintendents. So that is the message from OSPI with regard to our mandate, and you can see very clearly the directive that if we don't follow mandates, our apportionment, which is our funding and what we just approved to receive, will halt immediately. Also, we consulted with our insurer, the Washington Schools Risk Management Pool, to find out about insurance per your directive, and you're asked to look at that. Based on their executive director's feedback, if we as a system establish what's called as deliberate indifference, so we have taken the position that we will not follow mandates, we are subject to the potential of losing our insurance coverage and or being held personally liable. So that's the information that we receive both from OSPI and from Risk Management Pool with regard to following mandates. What we have discussed is a system of leaders to make sure we're calibrated as a system and you're not surprised, is that our job is to communicate and follow the guidance as it comes to mandates, that we would not supersede guidance without conversation with you all to make sure you were in the loop. So we have done a lot of interpreting and revising over the last 24 to 48 hours, and that's the Chris Willis part of we, by the way, who's a working machine. And that will be coming public out on Monday, just so we can get those updates. I will say there's some celebrations to this that we didn't see last year. So there are greater relaxations of social distancing for kids and what constitutes close contacts for children, which will result in more in-person instructional time. There are some also other opportunities through testing to get athletes and students back in school earlier. So there is a recognition of the harm and emotional trauma of that closure, and a recognition that as the Department of Health and through their mandates and requirements of us, that they are taking a position that we need to get kids back in school every day the best that we can as well, while keeping them safe. So that's what we see through the guidance and through the language, and I hope that just provides a little context of where that sits.
And was there any updates on, you mentioned social distancing 6 feet, and then we were at 3 feet, and has there been any adjustment to that? It created so much operational disruption in our classrooms that I'm just curious.
That's part of the strategies for mitigation, so vaccinations, face coverings, social distancing, hand washing, HVAC with higher levels of filtration. All of those pieces play a role in the mitigation strategy, and the guidance is around 3 feet as that minimum standard as best we can. So not at the expense of displacing kids or not having school, but 3 feet as best we can, similar with face coverings at lunch. Do the best we can. We know that, for instance, the high school has 400 students at a time with lunch, and you'd have to spread over the whole entirety of the campus. So we're trying to figure out what that looks like to do the best we can. But yes, so there is still guidance around 6 feet for adults, 3 feet for children as best we can. What hasn't gone back to the guidance from last year is outdoors. Masks are not required. So that gives us greater flexibility at times where we're doing PE outdoors or recess or things of that nature. So our communication to staff at this point is that when we're outdoors, we can be mask free. When we move indoors, we have to, by order and directive, mask back up. That was different last year as well. So that there is some relaxation that will help us in the environment this year returning. We asked about when might we see vaccine eligibility, how long might face coverings last, and this isn't official by any means. I'm just repeating what I heard. Please don't hold me to it, but they were kind of talking about approval for national vaccine for under 12, maybe earlier October with rollout that might happen into the holidays. So I would envision this probably honestly to last for the first several months anyway into the school year, and then we'll just have to see where things go. But that's as best as I can probably update you today from what we've seen.
I did get the feeling from looking at the mandates and the emphasis on getting the kids back in school that a lot of the mandates are to help us keep the kids back in school. Just before I came here, I read about a county in Florida that event for 2 days and 440 students and staff were quarantined. So I know things are difficult, but we're trying to make sure we can keep the kids back.
A few celebrations just to share, and thank you for making some of those notes earlier today. That is just wonderful of staff to hear and appreciate what you think and see and feel. So thank you for that. We do have a school supply event where we will be partnering. Director Lee will be out in the community this Saturday helping get school supplies and to the hands of folks that might need them. So that'll be coming out. That's been posted out. Touch truck. I couldn't not put this picture up there. If that just doesn't touch your heart, I don't know what does. We have an amazing partnership with the city. As you know, we continue to express a desire to build that relationship and the collaboration with our city and community stakeholders. And it was just wonderful to see Chris and Megan were out there helping kiddos and families onto our forklift and our buses. And I think we have some future customers that will be hopefully excited on that first day of school to get on the yellow fleet. And then, as you know, we try to spread the love, if you will. We put out a little note on Facebook thanking our facility staff when it's hot, when it's muggy, all summer long. They're out there working with our roofers and cleaning floors and getting our facilities ready to go, repainting, repairing air conditioning, HVAC, maintenance, filters, all that stuff. So we put a little note out, and that's a continued focus based on your expectation around community celebration and collaboration that will continue to reach out and put out positive messages so people can know what we do, and that goes a long way. I talked to 2 custodians last night that happen to work here, and they just felt appreciated and valued, and that goes a long way. So thank you for that guidance and that expectation. It's certainly going a long way. That concludes my report.
Questions for them?
Just, it was obvious at the CPAC meeting how hard it was. The ground crew worked to make the place look as good as it was. That was very impressive.
The next thing we're going to is reports. First thing is finance report. Report by, right? There we go. So report by means if you have any questions for her, she's right there.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Oh, about financial reports?
Finance reports, no, you can't.
No, okay, I'm sorry, we missed what you were,
When financial reports.
okay, yes, we're following along.
So didn't know if we were allowed to ask questions at all, but,
On what, the financial report?
no, just what we were talking about before.
No.
Okay.
Sorry, Patty. Any questions? We'll move on next to the next one. Report by the chief. Steve?
So that's a brief report about our initial work around drug and alcohol community partnerships in that endeavor. We'll have much more to report over the course of the year as things get going, but that's your initial report of how we've taken that grant funding, established those partnerships, and in addition, bringing that support into our schools for our kiddo. So
So just to make sure I'm clear, because on this graphic, so year one funding and year two funding, the 90,000 and the 30,000, that's grant money with the 40K district grant. Perfect.
correct, which will help to go for staffing to support that initiative.
Right, no.
Any other questions?
Just, so the community coalition will be beyond, their involvement in the, truancy board. It will be a further collaboration. That's
Yes.
great, that's great. I'm glad we're working together.
Given us also a report about the strengths isolation report. Chris, you not here? He's coming in, Marcy. Any questions?
No, just that, I'm always looking for trends and patterns, and it's just gonna be messed up for years.
Even though the data reflects long periods of closure and or partial learning, and we see a major correlation and reduction of restraint and isolation, which we would expect given the context.
Absolutely.
Any more questions? We'll move on to the consent agenda, item 1 through 5. Any questions? This is the action item.
No questions, but I just want to say I was happy to see a field trip.
Nice. That was real nice. We're back to some kind of normality. Have no questions, looking for a motion to approve consent agenda 1 through 5.
I will motion to approve items 1 through 5 on the consent agenda.
Second?
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Thank you. Next one on the agenda is action items. It is bilingual program. Use that. That is this again. Any questions?
I did have a request, and forgive me if we review this information perhaps at a different time of year when we're looking at our data, but I really appreciated the number of students, seeing the number of students impacted by this program, and I'd be very curious to see how it trends over time. And so this is something that will, that we have increasing numbers of students needing this language support. Just, I can't remember if we review that information at another time during the year. I think we do, but I can't remember exactly where. And if we don't, then I see that next time.
I think it's in the board calendar, I can't remember when.
Yeah, and I can't remember under what.
Huh? Yeah.
It is an annual report, okay, perfect. Thank you for already having it done. Yeah, that's a lot of kids.
This is action item, so we need a motion.
Motion to approve the transitional bilingual program.
I'll second.
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next one is 21-22 salary. For non-classified. Welcome back.
Thank you very much, and good evening, board directors. So just wanted to share with you, as you know, we have multiple salary schedules that cover the approximately 300 employees that we have in Orting. In addition, with those salary schedules established, we have administrators whose contracts go forward for your approval in April. And then we have our bargaining agreements, which generate salary schedules through bargaining agreements for our certificated, our classified, and our coaching staff. Our non-represented employees, however, do not have either of those vehicles, and so each year, approximately in August, we bring forward a salary schedule. This is inclusive of IPD, which is the implicit price deflator based on gross domestic product, and that is contained or included within our apportionment, and for this upcoming year, that portion is 2%. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but other than the increase for this coming year, the schedule is very similar to last year with some tightening up of titles as they present that.
I'm sorry, Debbie, IPDs.
It's called the implicit price deflator, and it sounds funny because deflator, I always think of it goes down, but this actually is 2% increase to our apportionment, and we, in turn, we put that forward to our employees. So the apportionment that comes from OSPI would be 2% more.
Does that be what I would think of previously as like cost of living?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I think I've asked that before, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So is that like pass-through for other employees?
Yes, each of our employee groups would receive that 2%. And there's a footer on the salary schedule with regard to the amount of it.
Thank you. Any questions, I will, get a motion.
I'll move to approve the 2021-2022 salary schedule for non-represented classified essential services staff.
Second?
First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Condition certification request, that's good.
That. So it is not common, but regular for you to have seen, for your consideration, a request for a limited certificate for staff members. This request comes to you for Long Tran, who is being hired as a CTE video productions teacher, and remarkable process, a selection process that he went through. We're very excited to bring him on board. However, he has not yet gone through a traditional teacher prep program, and yet he has incredible background in both his undergrad and his master's for video production, and ties nicely to the position that we want to offer for students. So we would ask for your consideration in approving our ability to gain a conditional teaching certificate for this employee to come on board.
You know, I really appreciated in the past how Matt explained to us the process of how CTE teachers can go, the state has provided a path to do that. And so knowing that, it really helped me to understand why you would see it so frequently with CTE. And I'm glad the state is doing that, because there's a lot of valuable people that we are getting to employ. And I met the young man, and he's
OHS is very excited as we are at the state level. And I should tell you, so there's, in the spirit of no surprises, you will likely see some additional conditional requests from us in September. We are finding that the Office of Superintendent of Public Instruction has not been able to process all certificates. And so we have some that our workaround is to request a conditional until we can have regular certification come through. Don't be surprised if you see those things.
And yes, I can attest to that. They are months behind.
Yes, 43 days. 43 days is the lead time right now.
Wow. All right, any other questions for her? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, motion.
Motion to approve the request for your submission of a conditional certificate on behalf of long-term to serve as CTE video productions teacher for Orting High School.
All in second?
Ms. First and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The next one is the budget. I see.
Prepared by.
It says prepare by.
Any questions?
I just like
Budget?
transfer.
I like yours. Use my back to the camera. I didn't move that.
Any questions for her? Thank you for all the hard work.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
On top of an audit and bottom bread and
Yes,
all that.
it has been a great year.
She says that. And ESSER funds.
And ESSER funds, and
But it's all in the rearview mirror now.
it is, it's gonna be amazing next year.
And
And we're off to school.
God, I'm not doing this all that.
Our hearts are with you.
well, you are an amazing employee and person, so thank you, thank you, thank you.
Well, who would be the honor to approve if we need to make a motion?
Kathy, you got this one.
Oh, yeah, okay. I motion to approve, is that the right one?
Yeah, resolution.
Okay, resolution number 10, 2020-21 for the approval of the 2021-22 budget, as well as the four-year budget summary and the four-year enrollment projection as outlined in the 2021-22 budget presentation.
I'll second.
It'd be first and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Woo!
Next one, the board comments.
I'm just gonna take a minute to thank, all the staff that, has been working so hard in this week. It's really a challenge in these facilities that we have, to put forth the best efforts like you always do. So it's just, thank you, Ed, thank you, Marcy, thank you, Bonnie, thank you, Aaron, thank you, Debbie, and thank you, Steve, and I am so sorry, I'm horrible with names.
Kevin.
Kevin, thank you, Kevin, and everybody else. I just, very appreciative.
And that was one thing that was so noticeable at the CPAC meeting, that none of the buildings have any way to cool employees or students down.
You got, I would thank Ed for taking on this and, the process, I mean, you're on the right track. You're on the right track. And so I thank you for ensuring on the right track and looking forward to seeing what amazing things you can do. Appreciate it.
And I wanted to say, I'm so glad in his little diagram that he has, that he includes problem solving, because no matter what your skills, if you can solve problems, you're going to have much more success in your life. And that's something that's taught early on, whether it's how you get your own pencil instead of the teacher handing it to you, or in high school, I also wanted to thank you for having the act at the high school. That was what I was going to say, finding your way to that one and remember. Thank you for having act at the high school itself. Thank you. That's great.
Not hearing any more comments, we're going to join the meeting at 6:49. Thanks, everyone.
Anyone? Oh.